want to talk about government that could be run a lot more cheaply than it's done now. Well, U.S. government is the biggest spender in the U.S. economy. A lot of money that it spends, it finds its way into the real economy. For example, it hires all these people, contractors, all these military personnel, spends money on building stupid old tanks, makes construction projects, does infrastructure. Well, that money seeps into the real economy, or percentage of it seeps into the real economy. And if the government stopped spending all this money, or like 60% of the money that comes in to the economy, then this economy just won't be worth shit. We will have a lot more downturn on economic terms. But technologically, it's possible to run government or governments on a shoestring, and then the money that's saved, if it was spent conscientiously, would be like a dividend that should be given to the private citizen. Really, it's their money that's not being dumped into the economy via military, via contractors, via military hardware manufacturers. It will just come directly to them. Well, when they had the New Deal and they instituted Social Security, that was really important to many people, because usually when the older folks they get their checks or Social Security, then that money is also available to their relatives, to their kids. It becomes inheritance. It's money that actually helps the economy go around. Well, what's really important is the velocity of money. That money comes in and goes from business to business. It doesn't get stuck in some central bank. The money that's all stored up is like flood money, or flood water is kind of toxic, and it doesn't really help anybody except a few people. And but the velocity of money, when it is increased, then that will really change stuff around in an economic sense. Well, there is a saying attributed to Imam Ali that he said that there is a lot of big money that never comes to any kind of good. It's just like money that the Fed prints and gives it to their friends. But there is a lot of little money, or a small amount of money, that does all kinds of good. It goes all around. Many businesses benefit from it. Well, there is some countries, I was reading about this in some off Broadway printout. Like I think it was Estonia or one of those little countries, or Latvia, and they had put all the functions that the government does. Like you want to get driver's license or an ID, or you want to get passport, travel documents, or you want to come in and invest. Well, they had also put their immigration on the web. Well, a lot of those places, Latvia, they're white people. They're European. It's pretty nice. They have these same nice buildings, and They have classical music and kind of Western-looking restaurants, but they don't have. What they don't have is the prestige and all the hot air that the Americans have. Americans think that, oh, we're so special and we were very important. Well, you are exactly the same kind of people genetically, and also your buildings and your city and your culture. These people that live in Estonia or Latvia, and so these people, these Europeans, really, they they don't have the vast egos and hubris that the Americans and the American government has. So they had no such hostility towards immigration or people coming in and going out and doing business, or their government being just run virtually on a web. And there's very little that actually you had to go into an office to do it in regards to their government. I think they had put up kind of mechanism where you could just, if you were an investor, you invested like 25,000. It was a small amount. I don't know how much it was. I forgot. Then you could get a virtual kind of citizenship in there, and you can come in and go import and export. I don't know if you like Latvian women. I do, but it was just they had short-circuited many of the processes that, for example, U.S. government does, and because they are not trying to become an empire, they don't have, all these military expenditures and all these hostilities going with many foreign countries. Then there many departments or many branches of their government were run on a shoestring, and they're very manageable, very cheap. And also, it was helping them because they were open to foreign trade. Anybody can come in and do business with them. And I think that in our world, trade is far more important than manufacturing, and also a quality that some places have, like Iran or France or Latvia or Russia itself too, that they don't have an asinine attitude towards like anybody, towards Mexicans or towards Arabs or towards Iranians or towards Africans, and their relations is very simple and very easygoing. So many different countries or many different people can come in and do trade with them, and I don't know how Americans view it, but I think that trade is really far more important than any kind of industry you might have. Well, I want to talk about the past. When I came to United States in the 70s and 80s, this place was the most industrialized and all that. It was like Germany, but they outsourced many of their industries. But I think that back then it was very important to have industries, to have keep track of everything, and then things gradually changed and became far more financialized. Well, even back then, the society was a lot more open, and the people were not so stuck on themselves, so hostile to each other and to foreigners. And there was a lot more tourism and a lot more business. I think back then, many Iranians came in, and they also made family. They married, or they the society was a lot more open and a lot less afraid. And then things changed. But I was looking at some videos about Iran, and back then we had a war with Iraq, and our country was suffering because we didn't have good weapons, and a lot of Iranian soldiers got killed. But then Iranian government established a very friendly relations with China, with Russia, with Ukraine, with many Eastern Europeans, and even they tried, sometimes not successfully, with Western Europeans like France and Britain. Even they tried to do some business with Israel. Well, uh, for example, with Germany, Iran has always had secret and very friendly relations with Germans. Even at the times of Hitler, like Iran was great friends with Germany. Actually, when the British and the Russians occupied Iran, they were afraid of Reza Shah because they thought that he was secretly a Nazi sympathizer. He had all these philosophies about bringing ancient Iran back, like the Aryans and all that bullshit. But then, with some even Western European countries, we have had trade and we have had very good relations. And then also in modern day Iran, we have had very nice long relations with Cuba, not Argentina, but like Brazil, Venezuela, even Mexico. Iran has full diplomatic relations with Mexico, which is south of the border, and even though we have had on and off relations with Canada, but the relations with Canada is far better than it ever was with the United States. But I was watching of all the stuff that the Iranians have managed to produce, all the industries, and a lot of it also came from foreign trade, and like buying whole industries and technologies from China, buying whole industries and technologies from Russia, and I think Ukraine helped Iran build its own passenger planes, and well, what I'm trying to point out is that industry in our times is not as valuable as having very good relations, very friendly, open relations, trade with important countries, and the Americans are really have shot themselves in the foot, and this has been going on for a very long time. And I hear from Trump is still trying to bring these old industries back. Well, I had videos about manufacturing. Manufacturing has changed, and new industries like 3D printing or nanotechnology, they supersede whatever that all the technologies could do by scale factors. Like, scale factor in engineering means like 100 times better, 100 times more production. Well, I was watching these videos that they think that AI and robotics can produce and any kind of machinery, any kind of car, airplane in huge quantities with very little labor. Well, what I'm saying is that we are looking into the past. Well, that's really something that the Americans are afflicted with, but the future is a lot better and a lot more abundant, and we can do things a lot more cheaply with AI, with the automations, and also with trade. If we are missing some kind of industry, we don't have to reinvent that industry. we can just buy the industry from foreigners, that we have good relations with. We are not killing each other. Well, I think the Russians have given us so much technology. I was watching Iran military has produced Bavar 373, which is a step above S300. Well, that S300 itself is an outrageous anti-aircraft system. It's like a whole series of them. They're all networked together. But then when these Bavar systems come in, well, they are game changers, even better than S300, and we are producing them on ourselves, which was something unheard of 40 years ago when I was coming to United States. Well, that's the tip of the iceberg with all the industries Iran has gotten into. I was watching all these different manufacturing advances in agriculture, nuclear technology, even medical devices. I doubt that there is anything that the United States could sanction us against, that we couldn't get it or we couldn't manufacture it ourselves. Well, that brings us back to United States, that the United States can change things again, can produce a lot of commodities, a lot of everyday products using robotics. All you have to do is, give some companies, say, hey, you start manufacturing these commodities that we are wasting our money on China, billions of dollars with AI or robotics, and we'll give you, tax breaks for 10 years. As long as we can get good supply and we get our manufacturing back. But they have already been very successful with oil production. The United States, it makes a lot of oil, but it's from shale oil or from short-lived wells. But maybe the technology can be improved to be less polluting and cheaper, and they can have the supply and the profit. I mean, well, this can extend to other products. It doesn't have to be just oil. Well, another thing that the Americans can do to stop economic slowdown or collapse is to tax these fucking corporations. They've been the biggest beneficiary of bailouts. Many of them are zombie companies, and it doesn't matter if they live or die. Other industries will come in, but for God's sake, we should tax these people. We should tax many banks a lot higher rates, and that money should come in as basic income or as dividend for all the people that have had to live through all these economic crises these guys create. Well, there is a lot of ways to save money, and all the money that the U.S. government and that zombie companies squander and their banks, and that money could do a lot more. Well, I think in the future, the people of a country will prosper, and it depends on how much love they have for each other. Because in a country like Iceland or Iran, Iranians have a lot of nationalism. They love each other, and their banks, their government, their military, they do everything to help each other, help their citizens, help their industries. They are not like Americans, that they don't want to institute social programs because they don't want certain segments of their society to benefit from them, like me or blacks or Spanish, you know, or we'll have these programs, but then we want it only for the whites. It's not like that. There is a nationalism, and also there is so much industry and technologies that have been developed, either seeped out of the United States or is here, that we are not using. Uh, but I think that the information technology revolution can cut costs uh, in so many aspects of U.S. government to make it cheap, very cheap to do many things. And I think that the American government can do, and I don't think they will do this on their own. They will have to wait for something that really triggers it, like there's a huge economic collapse, and then the people will just storm the Washington D.C. or overthrow the government and bring in different kinds of governments. This government and this elite, super wealthy, they are themselves the biggest drain on our economy, and they tax us, and they take us to wars, and they destroy our morals. Uh, thank you very much for putting up with me, and please subscribe, and please don't be shy, leave your comments.